Hello, this is what I've been thinking with, I guess, what we've been thinking now with Marcus Cage. I'm your host, Marcus Cage. In this video, notice I wore a special shirt for you guys, tack, because this shirt is going to be talking all about tack. I decided a couple of videos. One by a trans young woman who's a content creator. Goes by the name of Blair. I don't remember her last name at the moment, but you guys will see it in her video because I plan to share the whole clip in its entirety because I believe that she hits on a whole lot of good points, and I'll let her do the talking for herself. She said that her point of view is not being represented very much, and I feel like we should hear, all the different sides of the trans community's argument, because I feel we've only been hearing the people who have been very vociferously against Dave Chappelle. So I wanted to play one where there's somebody who's actually has a different perspective. Without further ado, I won't talk too much more, and I'll let you guys look at the two clips which I have for you, and let you guys weigh it out. What do you think? Am I wrong? Am I not wrong? I guess just leave it in the comment section. But hopefully you enjoy.
What's up? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So the entire world seems to be up in arms over the new Netflix special from Dave Chappelle called The Closer. It's a stand-up special, obviously, and I watched it last night after about a week of the mainstream media and most of social media telling me that it was full of transphobia, full of hateful comments toward trans people, and that as a trans person, I was going to be deeply upset about it. Activists are trying tooth and nail to cancel Dave, to get the special taken down. There is an alleged walkout planned by the trans employees over at Netflix, all three of them. So yeah, even if you haven't watched the special, you've definitely heard that it's transphobic. I was impacted by this special in a way that I feel like you guys aren't really going to expect. I mean, just judging based on other reviews I've seen and how other people are talking about it after watching it, I don't really see my opinions or my takeaway on the special mirrored in anyone else's commentary. I was actually deeply moved by the special and I cried, not because I was offended by it or I was hurt or upset, but because, well, I was hurt. Not over the jokes though, over Dave's friend Daphne, the story rather of Dave's friend Daphne. Now you have to watch the special for all the details on their friendship, but basically Daphne was Dave Chappelle's trans friend and fellow comedian. He told a bunch of funny stories about how he let her open up for him at a nightclub and how she bombed, but it was very special for her still, and basically just went on to describe their unique but very special bond as friends. And if you remember, a few years ago, Dave did a whole other special for Netflix in which he was also accused of being transphobic, and Daphne, as his trans friend, actually went on record to defend him, tweeting, "Punching down requires you to consider yourself superior to another group. Dave Chappelle doesn't consider himself superior to me in any way. He isn't punching up or down. He's punching lines. That's his job, and he's a master at his craft. Hashtag sticks and stones." Now, I vaguely remember this happening, but I know that Daphne was just absolutely dragged by the trans community, the LGBT community in general. Attacked, canceled, bullied online. There was a huge hate mob against her for having the audacity to stand up for her friend as she knew him. And if there's anyone who knows what it's like to receive hate from the trans community after you dare to step out of line from exactly what they want you to do and or think, it's me. So the part that brought me to tears is Dave said in the special that 6 days after this online hate mob went toward Daphne for defending him, she killed herself. She ended her life. And like I said, I had vaguely remembered this debacle happening. I remember a few headlines like Dave Chappelle's trans friend is defending him or whatever, but I did not know. And Dave goes on to say that while there's no way to specifically know that the online hate mob from the trans community against Daphne was the specific and exact reason why she chose to do that to herself, it didn't help, right? Like, I can only imagine, actually I can imagine very well, the feeling of having your community turn on you because you have a different opinion than them. This is something I've dealt with for years, and I'm a very strong person, but I can only imagine how someone who, I don't want to say she wasn't a strong person, but I can only imagine how someone who's not used to that, not expecting that, how it may affect them. and what it may cause them to do, right? All for having the audacity to step out of ideological line with the trans community, and for having the double audacity to not abandon her friend because the world is going against her friend. Now, I promise the whole video is not going to be me getting like super deep like this, but I just have to say, like, this just made me want to vomit for multiple reasons. The first reason being, like I said before, I can relate to that. This is something that I think we all can admit that does happen to me. You know, there's a very unique and specific intensity that the community goes after you. And then the second reason I wanted to vomit upon hearing this is that I wish I knew it was happening when it happened. Like, I wish I would have heard that Daphne was getting this amount of hate. I wish I would have been able to like slide into her DMs and say, hey girl, like I understand what you're going through, but it's going to pass. You're going to be okay. Like, and good for you for sticking to your guns. I can relate. Like, I don't know. I just feel as a public trans person, I could have, there's no point, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but like, I wish I would have been able to do something and say something to her when it was happening, because I know she would have seen it, and I know I don't know. That's messed up. And like I said, the message of Dave Chappelle's special that no one seems to be grasping is how the community, the LGBT community, goes after people so viciously for things, and how it's so often not even deserved. And what better way of showing that than the fact that in the midst of fighting against transphobia, right, attacking Dave, they bullied, harassed, and attacked an actual trans person so badly that it possibly contributed to 6 days later, her ending her own life. To me, that is just such a sadly typical example of the community's inability to look inward and see that oftentimes we become what we claim to hate, and we behave in ways that are the same, if not even worse, than what we are fighting against. Because possibly bullying a trans woman into actually taking her life is 20 times worse than anything you could say that Dave Chappelle has done toward any trans people. I think we can all agree on that. I mean, even further making this point, there was a bit where Dave talked about how, you know, the gay community has recently canceled DaBaby, a rapper, and how he shot and killed someone, like literally murdered someone, but what he's been canceled for is offending gay people. You tell me. Even people that like I like and respect that are talking about this special and reviewing it and saying their thoughts, like, why is no one talking about Daphne? Like, maybe it's because I am who I am, that I was so deeply affected by it and how it stood out more to me. But it seemed as if the entire special was because of his trans friend Daphne who took her life, because of the fact that she was canceled by the mob. That was the whole point of it. I could understand why someone would be in a place where that amount of hate might put them in a place where they could do something like that. I mean, I have put up with it for years, and at this point, girl, it's nothing. I'm living my best life. I don't care. Like, the hate really doesn't affect me anymore. But I remember the first couple times it happened, it definitely did. And I've seen other trans people who maybe were inspired by my content over the years and tried to make similar content have literal mental breakdowns over the amount of hate they get, and then fall off the internet because they cannot handle it. That's something I've seen actually from 5 or 6 different people. If you think about it, there have been like 4 or 5 that have tried to kind of join me and do the same content over the years, and most of them have completely fallen off the internet because they just can't handle it, because there is such a specific intensity the trans community goes after you when they are mad at you. And the fact that there is no justice for the fact that they potentially took Daphne's life is disgusting. Where's the justice in that? I wish y'all could be prosecuted. I mean, I don't know, dude. I also just want to say, on a more general note, I guess, like, the push to censor comedy is also very disgusting to me. And also how selective it is, because if you haven't watched the special, you probably haven't even heard about this, but Dave opened up the special with a joke about child by a priest. The fact that the outrage is about the trans stuff and not that is kind of like, again, you know, it's like, I'm not outraged by either because it's comedy, but I put myself in the shoes of someone who would be outraged, and why they would choose like a non-binary joke over like a child molestation joke is kind of like, where are your priorities, sis? And furthermore, every group gets joked about. And why the trans community feels special and exempt from that, I don't quite know. It seems a bit narcissistic and self-involved to think that you are above that or you are uniquely exempt from it, like I said. Laughter is one of the few things that separates us from animals, if you think about it. It's one of the few things that, especially in this divisive time, can unite people across borders, across communities, across nationalities, genders, races, all that. If you're not gonna laugh, you're gonna cry, right? So try laughing, stop crying. I wanna leave you guys with a quote from Daphne that Dave relayed during the special. Dave talked about how at one point he told Daphne, you know, I don't understand you being trans. I don't get it. And Daphne replied to that by saying, I don't need you to understand it. I only need you to believe me that I'm having a human experience. And that quote to me is so beautiful. And I've never put that into words before, but it very specifically describes the way in which I view myself being trans, actually. As a trans woman, I don't need anyone to believe I'm a woman. I'm a real woman. I don't care who views me as a man, who views me as a woman, who views me as both or nothing or anything else that you can think of. I don't care because I'm Blair. I only care that you understand that I'm a human. And I'm going through it just like you're going through it. We may be very different people, but we live in such a crazy world with crazy things happening and crazy people in it. And how you get through it might not be how I get through it, but it's not for you to understand. It's not for me to understand how you're going through it. I don't feel validation when people tell me trans women are women. I don't feel pain when people say trans women are men, because none of that defines who I am anyways. And frankly, I don't understand a lot of types of people out there, or why a lot of people do a lot of things that they do. A lot of things that may seem sane to you that you're doing seem just as crazy to me as you think being trans is. You know what I mean? Your way of life isn't for me to understand. Your humanity is for me to respect. That's it. I'm going to end this by saying rest in peace to Daphne, who I feel like is being very unjustly left out of this conversation. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you liked this video. Sorry it got a little deeper than expected, but what are you going to do? Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my second channel, Blair Black, and I will see you in the next video.
Also, I would like to talk about the individual which organized the protest in the first place. If I'm not mistaken, I believe she's also done a couple of stints on TYT, and some of these comments which I will play from
some old tweets for Ashley Marie Preston, the superstar behind the Netflix walkout. You know, these things, these activists and so on and so forth. In my experience, they always have skeletons. Not all of them, I shouldn't say, but the ones that seem with, you know, obsessed with fame and fortune, and they want to be the face of a movement. They're always garbage. And it looks like this particular person, Ashley Marie Preston, has a huge, spicy history of anti-LGBTQ comments. Was a trans activist, Ashley Marie Preston, and recently unearthed tweets suggest that the organizer is nothing more than a pandering hypocrite. This via Josh Berger at Bounding Into Comics. Now, I will say this. I've seen these tweets. These tweets were sent to me maybe a week ago or a few days ago, and it just, you know, it didn't feel awesome looking at somebody's 10-year-old tweets. But the more I thought about it, the more I wondered if Ashley Marie Preston would be giving anybody else the same leeway. And the answer is no. And thus, I've become more and more jaded as I get older, and recently reread Rules for Radicals. And we're going to hold Ashley Marie Preston to her own standard. She is officially canceled. Leave a like on this video if you've just canceled her. And also, if you haven't yet, there's a red subscribe button down below. It's the only way you'll find my videos, so please do click it. The series of tweets were originally compiled by Twitter user Machine IV or 4, and brought to widespread attention by independent video creator and journalist Matt Orfalea. We have solid evidence of Preston throwing around phobic and racial slurs on social media. The protest against comedians of LGBT phobia, hate speech, and all other stuff is led by Warren Surrogate, who threatened all sorts of stuff against, These are derogatory terms for gay people. Bragged about performing actually raising their hands to an Asian person, sharing a sizable amount of very spicy tweets from Preston's own Twitter account. For example, in September 2018, so that's not that old, 3 years ago, I beat the F out of you furry slipper wearing F boy. IRL, I'd smash your head into a can of A&W, but I'm a fall back and let you keep pretending for the internet. D-Rider. Whoa. Yikes. Preston also authored tweets that are offensive towards Asians, stating in 2011, this Asian N-word in the subway got a fat, and he almost something from behind. He almost looked like a bee from behind. Another tweet read, almost got hit by an Asian in a BMW as I crossed the street. Yes, I know what you mean, but important thing is we didn't say it. Here's another one. Latino and Asian businesses need to stop being rude and disrespectful. I know it's a lot to ask in California, but speak effing English. Whoa. Based? Ashley Marie Preston, that is not inclusive. Now we know Twitter's not going to hold her accountable, nor will she hold herself accountable for any of these horrendous things she said. Another post, Preston reinforced another stereotype, telling her followers, another darn Asian almost hit me while crossing. What the F with you all and dang vehicles? I have no idea. In yet another series of tweets from 2011, Preston can be seen using a plethora of phobic slurs for her followers as seen on Twitter. This is the last time I help that F got F'er. He's bringing me problems. Okay. Got the 9 on these MFers. F bundle of sticks word. Leave them shook like jelly in jam. Smuckers. Artist me. Yikes. Yikes. Denora's a slimy S and the kind of B that'll get effed face down in the porta potty. What? What? Reinforcing a stereotype commonly associated with Asians, Preston wrote, another dang Asian almost hit me while crossing the street. Make no mistake, sometimes honesty can be messy, uncomfortable, and inconvenient, but it's always necessary to make real progress. Wrote Preston in a tweet, suggests she may believe reinforcing these racial stereotypes and throwing around slurs falls in the category of, quote, messy and uncomfortable honesty.
So I decided to show that, and my comments, my thoughts on it are, I am sympathetic to, any kind of discrimination of people. I don't feel any job should, hold your whatever, your sexuality, your skin color, your gender, any of that stuff against you. That said, there has to be a line that's drawn where if somebody feels and thinks a certain way, that's just how they think and feel, and there's not much you can really do about it. And when you start going to the point of trying to force them to accept how you view things and expect them to change on a dime to the way you expect and see things, that's where I have a hard time understanding and following you. Because as a minority male, I want to have those protections from the law, whereas I don't feel discriminated in the workplace, where I don't feel police officers are coming at me and attacking me, and I don't have a recourse. But at the same time, I understand that people are going to hate me. People are not going to like me. People are going to make negative jokes about me. People are going to do all kinds of things which are completely out of my control. And at what point do I separate from what's actual discrimination and harmful and somebody's point of view, which I don't agree with. At some point, there has to be a fine line. And a couple of things I noticed that in the Dave Chappelle stand up, he made plenty of comments about what he calls the poor whites. I didn't hear a big black backlash of a bunch of white people running out trying to cancel Dave Chappelle. He made jokes about pedophilia. I didn't hear anybody screaming about pedophilia. He made jokes about Jewish people. And normally I expect for them to be one of the first people out there screaming and hollering and upset, and ADL and JDL and all of these different groups, Southern Poverty Law Center, I expect them to be the first ones to go and shut him down and force an apology. Didn't see that this time around. He also made some jokes which I would deem as misogynist. But you don't have a women's march of a bunch of people coming out telling him that he needs to shut down and do this. The only people who were over the top upset and have been taking this to, I feel like almost like an atomic level, has been the trans community. Now, if you don't enjoy what Dave Chappelle said, you didn't think it's funny, nobody is forcing you to watch it. And because other people might have enjoyed it or watched it, that does not mean it is setting back your movement or making or encouraging people to do anything to you or harmful to you. And I feel like when we try to twist things to that level, it's unfair and it starts to warp the narrative. I also feel like it's comedy. It's one thing if he was some legislator and he was coming out making a whole bunch of statements that were going to transfer into some kind of laws which are going to negatively affect the trans community. That's a whole nother matter. But when we're trying to like censor people, that's when I have an issue with it, and I think that's when it needs to be called out. I normally don't like to speak on LGBTQ matters in general because I know the backlash that comes from even making, a disagreement a lot of times with that community. That community is very organized. There's a lot of money which is involved with that community, and they have the power to really wreak havoc if they decide to. Now, what the comedian Daphne, the friend of Dave Chappelle, what she had said, was that Dave Chappelle is not punching down, he's punching lines. And I agree with that. If you have the power to, and what's been shown, if you have the power to turn this into the shitstorm that it's been, you obviously are not as marginalized as you are saying you are. You obviously have a lot more power than you're even giving yourself credit. Because I watch my community get nowhere, get steamrolled over and over and over, and like Dave Chappelle kind of hinted to in his special, I'm almost a little bit jealous because we're not able to get anybody to react to what happens with us. I mean, I saw a stat, heard a stat, and you guys can verify it and double check that a black male is killed every 28 hours unarmed. My community is being killed, but there's not even a reaction to it. I mean, when the George Floyd thing happened, many of us were surprised that it even got to the level it got to. We're so used to our stories being ignored. We're so used to being accused of, oh, well, you guys are over exaggerating or lying, or having to listen to somebody, normally of the paler complexion, tell us that, oh, well, if you would have just done this, or if you would have just did that. And so everybody has been able to ignore and deny our issues. But whenever somebody in the trans community's feelings get hurt, it's a crazy shitstorm. So I'm just wondering, like, where can we find this balance? Like I told somebody on one of my live streams, I said, if I saw somebody harassing and bullying physically a trans or LGBTQ person, you know, I'm going to be one of the first people to jump in and stop that. But we can't go around every single comment that we don't like to try to destroy, you know, the person who makes that comment or anybody else who might like it or agree with it. I think that's when we're getting to we're turning into, or like Blair says, turning into the bullies that, you know, you say you're fighting against.